get it as well.
Okay, but what about the other aspects, like don't kill, don't covet your neighbor's property, don't envy, honor your parents?
Well, you're picking out particular nice bits of the Bible. They happen to be in the Bible. They are in moral philosophy. There are all sorts of ways in which you can justify that. Atheists don't, as a matter of fact, kill any more than anybody else. They do honor their parents as much as anybody else. There's absolutely no reason to think that religion comes from Scripture. The other way in which religion might give you your morals would be if you were moral because you were frightened of God, which is a pretty contemptible reason for being moral. I was actually on an American radio show, a phone-in show, and a man phoned in and said that if he didn't believe in God, he'd murder his neighbor. And there are people who actually think that the only reason that they're moral is that they're frightened of being punished by God. What a dreadful reason to be moral. That's not being moral at all.
Okay, but I'm not sure, let me get back to my original question, which I'm not sure I got an answer from, which was if, and I appreciate the fact that you have a problem with this, but if people see religion as the source of their morality, and let's assume for a second that it's the good part, the stuff we can all agree on, don't kill, don't envy, honor parents, and so on, where do atheists find their moral code from?
I have denied to you that religious people get their morals from religion. Religious people get their morals from the same place atheists get. Now, it's quite difficult answering where we all get our morals from, but whatever else it isn't religion. If you ask, where do we get our condemnation of slavery from? Well, that's certainly not from religion. It's from somewhere else. Now, if you press me to say where do we all... I'm not going to answer where do atheists get it from. I'm going to answer where do we all get it from.
But can't you humor me for that?
No.
Why not?
Because it's the wrong way to put the question. We all get our morals from somewhere else. And I'm now going to try to answer where that is.
Where is it?
I think it's from a steadily shifting consensus of moral philosophy, of legal judgments, of parliamentary votes, of journalistic editorials, of dinner party conversations. There's a whole zeitgeist which is steadily moving, and you can tell that it's moving because the moral outlook of today is actually quite different from what it was 100 years ago, and even more different from 200 years ago. There's a steadily shifting moral zeitgeist which is fed by this complicated interplay of all the things that I just mentioned, judicial decisions and so on. And it is across all of society, different in different societies, but it tends to move on a broad front. And with hindsight, you can pick out bits of the Bible, or the Quran, or whatever your holy book happens to be. With hindsight, you can pick out bits of the Bible that fit with the moral consensus of the century in which you happen to live.
But the consensus apparently evolves. It's a movable feast.
I think it moves. That's right. And you can kid yourself that it has something to do with your holy book, because you can, if you search hard enough, find verses of the holy book that agree with it. You have to ignore all the other verses of the holy book that most emphatically do not agree with it. You don't, therefore, get it from the holy book. You get it from this moral consensus, this modern consensus, and modern shifts steadily. And it's only with hindsight that you are able to graft it on to particular cherry-picked parts of your holy book.
Let me read another excerpt from your book. The status of atheists in America today is on a par, you say, with that of homosexuals 50 years ago. Do you feel persecuted?
I don't live in America, so no, I don't feel persecuted. In Britain, and I think in much of Western Europe, if you are religious, then you're not persecuted, but you tend to need to apologize a bit. If you move in intellectual circles, you sort of titter a bit nervously and say, actually, I'm sorry to say, I'm actually religious. It's different in America, different in the United States. I don't know about Canada. I suspect Canada may be sort of intermediate. I'm not sure about that. In America, you have to conceal the fact, at least in certain parts of America, if you're not religious, which is exactly the way homosexuals had to be 50 years ago.
So you think if you did live in America today, you would be leading that kind of a life?
Well, I wouldn't be concealing it. I mean, I would hope I would be one of those who come out, and one of my aims is to encourage others, with, I think, a certain amount of success. I mean, I think that there's a very large population of closet atheists in America who are now coming out in droves.
Well, this is where I want to go with this, because it's all about political power, and I want to try to find out. I want to find out why atheists and agnostics, who, if you put their numbers together, I'm not sure of the American numbers, but I know in Canada, I think the last survey indicated it's 15 or 16% of the population that don't identify with any church or mosque or synagogue, which is way more than Jews and Muslims and Buddhists and Baha'is put together, and I'm sure a bunch of other denominations as well. Why don't they get their act together and pursue political power?
My question exactly. That's exactly what they should be doing.
Well, what's the answer?
Well, I'm no politician and I'm no American, but
even in Canada, it's true. You probably can't get elected in this country running as an avowed
get your
atheist.
act together. I mean, you need to do something about this. It is preposterous that such an enormous minority, and it's a very large minority indeed, should be outgunned politically in terms of lobbying power by a much smaller minority, such as the Jewish lobby, which is it's certainly in the United States immensely powerful, far more powerful than numerically you would expect. And I think that just a little bit of organization is probably all that's required. I mean, the metaphor of herding cats has been used.
But is there, you wonder if there's something particularly distinctive or unique in the atheist's soul, if I can put it that way, that makes them uniquely unwilling to organize politically?
I think that's perfectly possible, and that's where the metaphor of herding cats comes from. I think it could be that these people are independent-minded, they think for themselves. If they didn't think for themselves, they probably wouldn't be atheists, and so it might be quite hard to get them to agree about any particular policy. I mean, whether they call themselves atheists or brights, or whether they make some sort of temporary alliance with moderate Christians or not. There are all sorts of issues that they will disagree very strongly about and argue very strongly about.
Is it possible they're not interested in increased political power?
That may be true of some of them, and I think that they're probably wrong, and one of my aims would be to persuade them that it would be in the interests both of them and of the country that they should.
You know,